What's up, Fantasy Football Nation? We are getting closer and closer to draft season, which means it's time to begin looking at sleepers, the late round picks that could win you your leagues this season. But before we get into any of it, be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment down below if you have a fantasy football question or comment, and I will answer that on the next fantasy football video. We also still have that contest going on to win a free draft kit. We had one person win already when I asked who I compared Ahmad Gardner to in my 2022 NFL Draft Breakdown. And yes, it was Chris Gamble. I believe Sabe won that contest. So congratulations on winning that, Sabe. If you are out there and you still want to win a draft kit, I'm going to keep giving away clues, giving away one clue in each video, a totally different answer each time. If you think you know the answer, be sure to put it down in the comment section. At some point in the video, I'm going to give you a question again today, and you will have to give me the correct answer. The first one to answer in will be the one to win the draft kit when it comes out at the end of July. But getting into today's topic, quarterback sleepers. I'm going to give you 5 of them today. Most of you guys like to wait on the quarterback position. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love Patrick Mahomes. I love Josh Allen. I like getting that top-tier quarterback. But with that draft capital, it's almost foolish to at times because that's where you really want to continue to get those really good running backs, wide receivers, and even potentially an elite tight end. So this is a position, quarterback. It's always deep every year. I think it's only going to be deeper this year. This is a position that you can afford to wait on if you're just in standard formats. If you're in 2 QB leagues, obviously you're going to need to go up and get your guy a little bit earlier. But in just standard 1 QB leagues, or as long as you're not in Superflex, this is a really good year for you to wait on a quarterback position and take a couple chances on some of these sleepers. And we're going to get into the first one, and that one is Carson Wentz of the Indianapolis Colts. I do like that Carson Wentz is being reunited with Frank Reich, who knows Wentz's strengths. He's going to finally have a good offensive line, which he hasn't had in Philadelphia since like his first or second season. But an offensive line led by newcomer Eric Fisher, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith. This is a stacked offensive line. Not only does it help the running backs, but it does help Carson Wentz as well. He doesn't have an excellent receiving core, but don't be surprised if Michael Pittman breaks out this year. They still have a couple decent tight ends in Jack Doyle and Trey Burton. T.Y. Hilton is still there, who I still believe is a very underrated receiver. So he does have some weapons. They may not come off the charts as being, excellent. But I do really like Carson Wentz's situation this year. He's ranked 186th on NFL.com and 243rd on ESPN. That's QB 24. So I would definitely take Carson Wentz at the end of my draft. If I can get him to pick 150, 160, take a chance on this guy because I think he's going to pay off big dividends. At the very least, he'll be a really good backup for you, but I believe he can be potentially a top 10 to 12 quarterback in fantasy football by the end of the season. The next guy I'm going to get into is rated a little bit higher, but I still believe he's not getting quite enough love, and that's Matthew Stafford. He's ranked 100 on NFL.com, 129 on ESPN, which is QB 14. I think this guy can be a top 10 quarterback this year. This is the first time really ever that Stafford's finally had a good offensive mind as the head coach to work with. Now, Jim Caldwell was a good offensive mind, but he had idiots like Bob Cooter and other guys running that offense. He wasn't the one calling the plays most of the time. So Matt Stafford is finally in a good environment, an environment where he can succeed. He had weapons in Detroit, but they could never put it all together. And if you look at the weapons he has, it's not super flashy, just like we talked about with Carson Wentz. But you have a guy like Van Jefferson who could break out this year, a guy who had some nice receptions on third down, had a couple touchdowns in the red zone, I believe. He's a guy who can come up big in those goal line and third down situations. You have Tyler Higbee, who's going to be the tight end 1 this year. Let's see how he does having that role to himself. And you still have Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp there, who are still reliable options, albeit not being, top 10 wide receivers. And then he still has 2 really good running backs in Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, both of which can catch the ball out of the backfield. And we know that Stafford likes throwing it to his running backs. He always did in Detroit, whether it was Theo, Riddick, DeAndre Swift, even going back to Reggie Bush. I mean, he likes throwing it to his running backs. So I'm excited to see what Stafford can do in this offense. I believe he can be a top 10 quarterback this year. If you can get him in the 11th or 12th round, which based off of their ranking on NFL.com and ESPN, if you're in a league where you're going to see kickers and defenses go off the board early, you're going to probably be able to get Matt Stafford in that round 11, 12 range, and to me, that's excellent value this year. The next guy is probably my favorite sleeper, and that is Sam Darnold. Simply because he's with Joe Brady, my boy Joe Brady, who I absolutely love. The guy who, if the Steelers would not have extended Mike Tomlin, I would have wanted the Steelers to hire as their head coach next year. The guy is a genius on offense. They brought in more weapons with Terrace Marshall. They still have DJ Moore and Robby Anderson at wide receiver. Of course, Sam Darnold worked with Robby Anderson in New York. They had a really good rapport there. He still has Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, a guy who he'll love throwing the ball to out of the backfield. He never really had that in New York. Le'Veon Bell is the closest thing he had, and he was a flop. And he also has additions of tight ends Dan Arnold and Tommy Tremble. Ian Thomas is there as well. So he has some big targets to work with. Last year, the Jets tried, they drafted Denzel Mims. He was injured for a lot of the year, showed some flashes, but wasn't available a lot of the time. And it was just a bad environment for Darnold. I really like this new start that he is getting in Carolina. It's the perfect place for him, and I think he's going to revive his career. He's 195th on NFL.com, 269. That's QB 30 on ESPN. So this guy's an absolute steal. I think he could be a potential top 15 fantasy quarterback by the end of the season. I would be totally fine with taking him at the end of the draft with one of these other sleepers. Let's say you get a Matt Stafford in the 10th or 11th round. Come back in the last round of your draft and get Sam Darnold. I would be totally fine if you go with that strategy during the regular season. And I'm excited to see what it is. I'm just checking to make sure they don't have the same bye weeks. Just looking for the Rams. Okay, Panthers have it week 13, and the Rams, they have it week 11. So yeah, you don't have to worry about bye weeks. Seriously, I think that's a really good strategy. Get Matt Stafford as your starter, Sam Darnold as your backup, and ride them all the way to a championship. Jordan Love is the next guy, and we've talked about on a previous video about avoiding busts. We talked a lot about Green Bay because of the uncertainty with Aaron Rodgers. But I believe a lot of people are discounting Jordan Love. Last year, he was my second-rated quarterback in the draft class behind, he was behind Joe Burrow. And, that was number 3. That was my bad. I lied. But I did have him ahead of Justin Herbert. Tua Tagovailoa was my second. Joe Burrow was first. Jordan Love was third. Because I knew there was a name that was slipping me for a second. But he is rated 318th on ESPN. That's QB 39. And I know because Aaron Rodgers is still there, we can't write him in as the starter yet. But I still do not think Aaron Rodgers is going to be the starter for Green Bay at the beginning of the season, at least. We'll see if he decides to come back mid-season. I just don't know what the situation is going to be there. But I think Jordan Love could take this job and run with it. I really think that this guy has all the traits you're looking for. He has that special playmaking ability, that it factor to just make things happen out of nowhere. I'm not saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes like some people were comparing him to. I saw glimpses of that, and I used that Mahomes' name to compare him. I kind of call him a poor man's Mahomes. But still, he's not in the same category as the Ferrari Mahomes. But I do believe that he is going to be a really solid quarterback considering the weapons that they now have. With Devontae Adams as his number 1, you have Amari Rodgers being able to catch balls underneath, and you have 2 good running backs in Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, plus a really good offensive line. And let's not forget that Jordan Love is more athletic than Aaron Rodgers, so don't be surprised if Love can get you some points on the ground as well. He can take off and run with it, so that's another plus when it comes to fantasy. And then the last guy I'm going to get into is a guy who keeps going under the radar, and I'm kind of surprised after last year, and it's Baker Mayfield. He's 176 on NFL.com, QB 23 on ESPN, ranked 220 overall. He's got one of the best offensive lines in the league. He has healthy tight ends, hopefully this year, in David Njoku and Austin Hooper, who was paid at the time to be the top tight end in the league. They also have the Harrison Bryant, who was a former Mackey Award winner. So you have 3 solid options at tight end. They brought back Odell Beckham. You still have Jarvis Landry in the slot. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I'll probably get into in a future video as well, because I do believe this guy's going to break out as well. So he has a really good supporting cast. I'm excited to see what he does. He's another one of those guys. If you don't like the risk that Sam Darnold brings, take a guy with a higher floor in Baker Mayfield. And, go into the season with Stafford and Mayfield. Those are the things that you're going to need to consider this year, especially if you're in a league that has a wider bench, as a longer bench. Be thinking about holding on to 2 or even 3 quarterbacks if you have a really long bench, but in most cases 2, instead of going for 1 quarterback and, just figuring, okay, I'll stream someone off the waiver wire the week that he's on bye, Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. If you have to take him in the second or third round to get him, unless it's the end of the third round and the board has totally gone against you, all of your favorite running backs and receivers have gone off the board, don't bother. Just wait to get a Stafford or a Carson Wentz and then pair them with a Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold, and I really think that your team will be set, because that will likely mean that you're stacked at the running back and receiver position, and that's really what you want. So we're going to get to my question of the day, and I should have done something with quarterbacks since we did, but the question I'm going to pose to you today is, where do I have Najee Harris currently ranked in my non-PPR rankings? Give me the answer in the comment section below. The first person to give me the correct answer will win the free draft kit when it comes out at the end of July. So be sure to put your thoughts in the comment section. Where do you think I have Najee Harris rated? First, second, third, 20th, 100th. No, he's not that far down, I will let you know. He's not 100th, but you don't know where he is. This is just a wild guess. There is no strategy to this to, figure out what is. This one is just a pure guess. But give your thoughts in the comment section below on who you would take as a sleeper quarterback this year. And if you have any other fantasy football questions or comments, put them in the comment section and I will answer them on the next video. And that's going to do it all for today. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.